parade of Panthers continues towards Buffalo. Brandon Beane named the new GM of the Bills, coming from Carolina, where he was an assistant GM under Dave Gettleman. Beane now reunited with Bills head coach Sean McDermott, who spent 6 previous seasons as the defensive coordinator for the Panthers. So more in depth, who is this guy? Well, as we said, he's worked his way up through the Panthers front office. He's been there since '98. He served as the interim general manager for 10 games in 2012 after Marnie Hurdy was fired, and he was the assistant GM under David Gettleman each of the last 2 seasons. Okay, so here's the big question. First and foremost, what do Beane and McDermott now have to do to convince, which has to be at some point a rather skeptical locker room of players who have seen a parade of GMs and head coaches go through, that they're the guys that can turn it around?
Trey, I'm actually going to reverse it. I think it's up to players like Marcel Darius, Sammy Watkins, Tyrod Taylor to show the new regime that we belong. I mean, we're talking about players for a variety of reasons, whether it's suspensions, injuries, Bills not exercising the 5th-year option on Sammy Watkins' contract, Tyrod Taylor with his restructured contract. All these guys are facing uncertain situations moving forward with the Buffalo Bills. Yeah. The Buffalo Bills have a new structure in place. Yes, they do have to establish the type of culture that they want, but it's also incumbent on those players. And the reason I'm naming those players, because those are the big money, big name players in that Buffalo Bills locker room. They need to establish whether they want to be part of the program moving forward. They need to have big years this year.
And these are players with the background of having multiple years with Rex Ryan.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And Rex Ryan's braggadociousness or whatever it was, the big comments, the guarantees, the pool table in the locker room, whatever you want to call it, and how it was almost the inmates are running the show rather than the head coaches. Rex Ryan's sort of attitude of always pumping up his players. He's the best in the business. We're going to give him the ball, and he's going to get the job done. Rather than, the culture of hard work, the culture of what needs to be done to win one football game, not championships, but win one football game. So they almost have to deprogram themselves. And so what McDermott, in my mind, I'm with you, but I will say this. What he has to do is, when that first example of a player showing that Rex Ryan attitude shows up again, that he comes down hard, that he really establishes what he wants in his locker room, on his team, on the practice field. And I'll also say this, the hiring, of course, they're on the same page probably because they've been in the same organization. They probably know each other. That's good. So the same page, that's good. But I will say this. This is a general manager being hired after the draft.
That is a weird thing.
All right? After the draft. And so if I'm Zay Jones, Deion Dawkins, Tre'Davious White, those type of, those first 3 picks, the first round and 2 second-round picks, did this guy like me? Yeah. Because when you're a high draft pick and you're coming out, you know who likes you and who doesn't. Like my agent found out that, the Bills are high on me, the Jets aren't, or the Panthers aren't, or something like that. Is this general manager have the same opinion, high on them? Would he have taken me? How is he watching me? So young players wondering, having that question of the new general manager and if he approves of their selection.
One second there. It's interesting you bring that up because this leads us to our next point here. And I want you to take a look at the revolving door here. They haven't made the playoffs since '99, the longest active drought in the NFL. And their instability is one of the reasons why. They've had 10 different starting quarterbacks over the last 10 seasons, from J.P. Lossman to Trent Edwards, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Tyrod Taylor. Sean McDermott is the 7th head coach in Buffalo over that time frame. They had 2 alone last season, Rex Ryan and Anthony Lynn. And Brandon Beane is the 5th general manager. Doug Whaley had a long run of 4 years compared to all the others in that decade. So we're talking about, if you're looking for a reason as to how you have the longest active playoff drought, that's it. It's just a revolving door here in Buffalo. How do they get that to stop?
I think when you look at any successful program in the National Football League, whether you're talking about the New England Patriots, the Seattle Seahawks, the Green Bay Packers, the one thing all of those programs have is continuity at the top. Continuity and stability at the top. When you constantly have a revolving door at the top, when you don't have the stable leadership from owner on down, it's all a trickle-down effect. It permeates in the locker room, in the front office, and what you get is the Buffalo Bills not making the playoffs since 1999, I believe it is. So step one for the Buffalo Bills, You got to have some stability at the top. If you want to get on the road back to the playoffs, back to winning the AFC, forget the play, winning the AFC East, because that's where it really starts. Everything starts by winning your division. It has to start at the top first. Got to have stability and continuity up top first.
You said the ownership. Ownership realizing let football people do their jobs, and that sometimes it takes more than 2 years for football people to do their jobs. Do you make the decisions as an owner, or does the media make the decisions? And are you influenced by, it's time they want to change, or there's pressure on Rex Ryan and he's got to go. So all of a sudden you got multiple coaches in and out because you just think this is a quick fix. You think this is fantasy football. It's not fantasy football. The best organizations also have the best ownerships, and they know that things take time. Make the decision. Your job is to make the good decision of head coach, general manager. Can they work together? Are they on the same page? Now let them go do it, and you write the checks.
Is there one voice that has to be there? Because we know both of you grew up in your football years in New England, where it was pretty clear. One guy determined everything. That was Bill Belichick. Do they need to sit down with McDermott and Brandon Beane and say, hey, we may be on the same page here, but there needs to be one voice?
Well, I mean, I think it needs to be a collective group, because I don't want the one voice being a first-time head coach or a first-time general manager or someone that doesn't have a lot of experience, that doesn't have years and years. All right, we're talking Pete Carroll, we're talking Andy Reid, we're talking Bill Belichick that runs the show over and
Mike
over.
McCarthy.
Mike McCarthy. Those type of guys, all right? I mean, you trust that those guys can be the voice, but in certain situations, when you're bringing a new team, that they have to work together, and I think that's what has to happen.
You have to, what the hope is that the Buffalo Bills grow into that.
Right.
But starting out right now, again, like Teddy said, you have a first-year coach, first-year general manager. It's a process. Follow the process.
Yeah, well, that process has led to this. Not only do they have that active playoff drought, in those 17 years of that playoff drought, they've only had 2